Welcome everyone to my Blood Mage Cast on Crit, Arc, and Comet guide. I'll be showing you the incredible potential of a Blood Mage that primarily uses its life as a resource. In this build, you will utilize a single spell to generate enough energy to infinitely cast various other spells. In this case, we'll be utilizing Arc, Comet, and Lightning Bolt. This build is designed to clear 15 plus maps at impressive speeds. It's capable of defeating all the map bosses and handle just about every map modifier with ease. It performs exceptionally well against both Trials, the Simulacrum, and is capable of defeating +4 difficulty pinnacle bosses like Zesh effortlessly. When overcapped, the build boasts an impressive 7,200 health and 5,000 energy shield, ensuring exceptional survivability. Now, let's talk about how the build works. We're going to be investing points into blood magic in our passive tree. This removes the use of all mana, eliminating the difficulty of managing two different resources. Now, this does double the cost of casting our spells, but because we're going to be stacking a large amount of life and be able to leech back our life whenever we hit enemies with the use of our Ascendancy node, Vitality Siphon, we'll be able to generate an infinite amount of life as a resource, thus allowing us to cast infinite amount of spells. We further improve our life leech by utilizing the Aziri's Acuity, making it so that whenever we crit, our life leech from the crit is instant. Now that we have the ability to infinitely replenish our resource, we're going to be able to exploit this by using cast on crit mechanics. We're going to be utilizing two different spells, Comet and Arc, alongside our Lightning Bolt from our Choir of the Storm's Amulet. Let me go ahead and demonstrate how it plays against a level 81 map. This build utilizes a one-button playstyle. We're going to be using our Spark as a spell to generate us as much meta energy as possible. We choose Spark because it has a very short cast time, allowing us to cast it and continuously move, maintaining maximum movement speed. We're going to be able to traverse the map even faster by utilizing the weapon swap tech with Blink. We do this by having a weapon set with a Crest of Ardura for the increased cooldown reduction, and then setting Blink to our weapon set 2. We also make sure that Spark is only set to weapon set 1, that way we don't have to switch back whenever we want to attack an enemy. Let me demonstrate what this looks like. We'll be blinking, and then whenever we attack, it swaps for you. Now let me show you what it looks like in action. Alright, now let's go over the gem setup that you'll need to make it work. The first thing we'll talk about is Spark. Spark is not going to be used to deal damage, it's going to be used to generate meta energy. So we have to do a few things to make it feel good. We got to increase its acceleration, that way it's able to reach more targets quicker. We're going to use persistence to make sure that the spell is bouncing around the map for longer. We're going to make sure that it costs less, because it's the spell that we're going to be spamming. In order to trigger the other spells, we're going to be using Unleash to cast more sparks, thus hitting more enemies and generating us more energy. And finally, the last slot is going to be dependent on what you're doing. If you're mapping, I recommend using Arcane Tempo so that you barely even notice that you stop to cast a spell. Next, let's look at our first cast on crit. We're going to be slotting in Comet. Now the level of Comet depends on how much health that you can sustain. So if you have a higher level of life pool, closer to 4K, you can make the Comet's level even higher. If you don't have a whole lot of health just yet, consider reducing the level of the Comet, as the bottleneck is going to be the amount of mana that the Comet costs. Because remember, it's going to be doubled. So this is actually going to cost 506 life. Now, in our current setup, that's not a problem at all because you're able to gain all of your health back with the spark in between the casts. But if you, I'm just letting you know, if you do have any issues with it, just consider reducing this until you have your life fixed, and then it shouldn't be a problem anymore. For support gems, we're going to slot in Spell Cascade. This is going to give you increased clear speed on higher level maps. You're going to grab Elemental Focus for increased elemental damage. You don't really care of the fact that you can't have elemental ailments. The only ailment that you'd be considering would be freeze, but everything's dying so fast it doesn't really matter. Rising Tempest for 12% more elemental damage. Because we're using primarily lightning spells, whenever Comet casts, you'll be able to grab 12% more damage, so it's free. And then Cold Mastery to increase the damage of the Comet. For the next cast on crit, you're going to be slotting in Arc. The reason why we're using Arc is because, remember, Spark is not dealing a lot of damage, and so you want a spell to kill the mobs in front of you very quickly, and that's what Arc is doing, and it's also going to help us keep our health up in between our Comet casts. And we also need it for high single target damage. So Arc covers those two bases really well. We're going to slot in Lightning Mastery as a support gem for the increased damage, energy retention, and impetus. And the reason why we're doing this is, again, we want all the mobs in front of us to die as quickly as possible. And this is going to be our secondary biggest contributor to our single target damage. So we want as many of these as possible. And these can be cast infinitely because of our Siphon. And then lastly, we're going to put in Overcharge so we can get a higher magnitude of the shock. The third triggered spell is going to come from our amulet. We're using Choir of the Storms. This is going to give us a level 19 Greater Lightning Bolt, and it's going to be found up here at the top. And we're going to be slotting in Spell Echo so that it hits multiple times. Considered casting for increased damage. Conk Effect because it does have the area tag, increasing its damage further. And finally, we're going to be using Ingenuity to reduce the cooldown recovery rate. So if you notice here, the cooldown is 0.3. This is the amount of times we can cast it or trigger it within a second. The second we remove Ingenuity, you can see here that the cooldown increases to 0.5. So this is really important to increase the amount of times that Greater Lightning Bolt is being cast per second. Okay, moving on. We're going to be using Grim Feast to overcap our energy shield. Currently I have 2300, so we're going to be doubling this in the map, giving us around 4700. Then we're going to be utilizing Blink on our weapon swap 2, so that we're able to traverse the map even faster. And now let's go over the gear. We're going to be utilizing a wand with +5 lightning spell skills. And the reason for this is we want to increase the damage of both our Spark, our Lightning Bolt, and our Arcs, as this is the way that we're going to be generating meta energy with Spark. So we need to deal more damage to give us more energy, and we need to deal more single target damage with our lightning spells. Next, you're going to be looking for critical hit chance, because we are a cast on crit build. The more times we're critting, the more energy we'll generate, and then get as many damaging stats as possible in the form of spell damage, lightning damage, and as extra. Next, we'll look at our offhand here. I've chosen to use the Sacred Flame. The reason why is it's incredibly cheap. It gives you 60% gain extra damage as fire, and it's going to give us the requirement of an additional 120 spirit to be able to have our second cast on crit and be able to use our Grim Feast here. Next, we'll look at the chest piece here. I've chosen to get increased maximum life and increased attributes. The reason why is we're looking to get a large enough health pool that when we cast our spells, we have a little buffer between the time that we've cast them, the time that the next spell is being queued up, and the time to hit an enemy and regen our health. So it's extremely important that we have, as high of a health pool as possible, so there's no lag between spells, because if there is, you're going to have to use like a health pot if you're really low to regain your health. Well, let's say you only had 1500 health, and you use a spell and it gets you down below a certain threshold where you're not able to cast another spell. You literally won't be able to cast a spell until you chug a health pot, get enough energy to meet a requirement, the cost requirement of a spell, before you can cast another one. So it's important to have as much health as possible. That way there is no lag and you can cast spells infinitely. The reason why the attributes are there is because we can further increase the amount of strength that we have. Strength gives life. Also, we can increase the amount of intelligence we have, meaning we can swap more points on our tree from being intelligence to strength, giving us more life. What you slot in these jewels is completely up to you. If you don't have enough chaos resistance, you can make these chaos resistance here. If you do, go ahead and use increase maximum life. On your helmet, this piece is also pretty flexible, but I've chosen to have a piece with increased critical hit chance. That's what we're primarily looking for. Health and resistances. The next piece we'll look at is the Adziri's Acuity. This is here to give us increased hit chance, give us some more stats, and give us instant life leech from our critical hits. This is very important. This makes it so there's no lag between the amount of life leech that we're getting, enabling us to cast spells infinitely and rapidly. Next, our boot. You're looking for a 35 increased movement speed base to make sure that you're zooming across the map. You want life, and then fill out your resistances. Now, on each of these pieces, you don't have to have rarity. If you don't have rarity, it dramatically decreases the prices of these items. Me personally, if I can't have at least 100 rarity, I feel like the build isn't worth running maps with. So if you can get it, it's very helpful to increase the amount of currency that's being dropped. Next, we'll talk about our Ingenuity belt. At this point in the league, it's very cheap to get one. Get something above, 70-ish%, let's say 75. And this is going to improve the value of the modifiers on our rings. For rings, we're looking to get life primarily. You're going to fill out your reses if you need to, and then get as much strength as possible, as this is going to give us more life. If you can, get cast speed on here. This will allow you to get your sparks out even quicker. And this makes it so you can maintain your maximum movement speed. So if you notice as I'm running, there's very little lag time in between my cast, and I can maintain my maximum movement speed. And lastly, our Choir of the Storms. This is integral to the build. You're going to want to make sure that you get one with plus 19 greater lightning bolt, as this is the highest it can go and give you the most amount of damage. The reason why it's so integral to the build is because of the line that reads critical hits ignore enemy monsters lightning resistance. This is going to make it so that when you're running Simulacrum or when you're running maps, you don't have to fear the bad luck of getting monsters have 70% elemental resistance, and then it makes it much more difficult to run the map. This also gives us an additional cast on crit mechanic. So every time we crit, we're getting a free greater lightning bolt at no cost. So it doesn't cost any life to cast it, no mana, nothing like that. And because we've reduced the cooldown on this, we're going to get about 2.5 spells per second, further increasing our single target damage. On a weapon swap, you're going to be looking to get the Crest of Ardura with as much increased cooldown reduction. All right, now let's go over the Ascendancy. We're going to be looking to start with Sanguimancy, then come out to Vitality Siphon, and grab Gore Spike. This is going to give us increased critical damage bonus per 40 life. Because we're stacking a lot of life, this is going to give us a great amount of critical damage bonus. And then we're going to grab Sunder the Flesh. This makes it so that our spells that normally don't have a high crit chance now do have a high crit chance. So if you read it here, it changes the base from whatever it is to 15%. So our Spark, by default, has a base crit chance of 9. So now that's 15. If you look over here at our Arc, it has a base crit chance of 9. Now it's 15. When you look at our stats here of Arc, you can see that we have a critical hit chance of 97%. We can get this 100% if we wanted to on the tree. All we have to do is swap out one critical damage, and that'll go ahead and fix itself. And then from our passive tree, let's go ahead and kind of talk through the logic. That way, if you ever want to make any type of adjustments to your tree, depending on your gear setup, you'll be able to be in a position to make better decisions. So what we're looking to do is grab as much critical hit chance and as much critical hit damage as possible. So if you notice here, we're going to path directly into these energy nodes because we do want some energy shield to make our Grim Feast feel good. Then we're going to start to path either left and right because the first critical hit nodes you can get are right here and here. After we pick these up, we're going to go a little bit further up and pick up this other critical hit here, giving us a little bit more cast speed as well. And then we'll start branching off left and right. This node right here is extremely important for our Spark. Because we're using Spark to generate meta energy, this allows us to chain additional times whenever we hit enemies, giving us more damage, essentially giving us more energy generated. So this is a non-negotiable. You absolutely have to have this if you're using Spark as your generating spell. From this point, you can branch off to grab more critical hit chance and damage nodes. You'll be branching over here to the right, picking up some True Strike for the Jugular and getting some increased damage nodes. You're also going to path to the north and pick up some more critical hit chance, more critical hit damage. And then you can path to the west here and pick up more critical damage. Now, from these paths, you're going to notice that you have other defensive nodes and other nodes that increase your damage. We're going to go ahead and pick those up as well. So if you notice, as we're going to the left, you'll see here we can pick up some energy shield nodes. We can pick up some energy shield nodes up here. We can branch off here. We can pick up more damage. We can pick up more crit and more crit damage. And then, of course, you want to path over here to pick up the blood magic. Now, if you path this way right over here, it's going to take you an additional passive point to get to blood magic. And that's the only difference, choosing which path you're going to go to. We just want to make sure that we're optimizing our passive points here. And then finally, we're going to go over to the right. Because we're primarily dealing damage with our triggered spells, we're going to path up here to get as much triggered spells deal more damage. You can get them from these nodes here and these notables. At the top, we're going to get energized. It makes us refund some of the energy so we can get more energy and keep casting the spells. And we're going to do the same over here to pick up more damage and pick up more damage again. For jewels, we're going to be looking for critical hit chance, critical damage bonus, triggered spell bonus. We're going to be looking for spell damage, elemental damage, or meta energy generation. So all 6 of those, or 8 of those modifiers you'll be looking for. So it makes it extremely flexible in the way that you're looking to pick up your jewels. So I'll just go over my jewels so you can kind of see what I've picked up here. Triggered spells, elemental damage, critical damage bonus, critical hit chance, all pretty much the same stuff that we just talked about here. Here you can see meta skills, generate energy, elemental damage bonus. So all of those have the same type of modifiers. For Megalomaniac, you're looking to pick up anything with crit and crit damage. The best ones being down here, Barbaric Strength, Vulgar Methods, and over here in the corner, Heart Stopping and Heartbreaking. Runner-ups could be here the Desensitization, and up here, Controlling Magic, and any of these nodes here. But because we're already taking them on the way, it's better off getting a Megalomaniac that gets crit chance and crit damage nodes that are further away from where you're pathing. So I recommend that you grab these over here or these over here. Now again, there's a lot of flexibility here. So if you happen to find a Megalomaniac that gives you, let's say for example, this node here and this node here at the top, okay, well then you're going to want to path down over here, pick up these crit nodes instead of these ones here, right? And then grab a Megalomaniac that grabs you Controlling Magic and gets you Critical Exploit. So go ahead and play around with how you are acquiring these passive nodes. Okay, we've reached this point in the video where I think you know how the build plays, how it works, how to make it function, and how to build it yourself. Now I'll leave you with some unedited gameplay footage of me doing some maps, some Simulacrum, some Breach, Zesh, and all that other good stuff. Enjoy. A quick reminder that you can watch all of my past videos on Twitch and YouTube as I stream regularly. If you'd like to hang out in-game or ask any questions about the build, you can find me streaming at twitch.tv/CJLive or on YouTube at youtube.com/easymodguides. If you've enjoyed this video, please do me a favor and hit the like button, subscribe for more content, and as always, thank you so much for watching. Until next time.